And hello, everybody. Welcome to SFF180. Sorry we're getting off to a little bit of a late start. Thomas here, as always, your host, and welcome to the best SFF of 2016 live show starring all these awesome people right down here. Thank you all for joining me, all my BookTube friends. Okay, what's going to happen is for the next hour or so, we're going to talk about some of our favorite science fiction fantasy reads from last year. We're going to talk about things we didn't like so much. We're going to argue amongst ourselves, and it's going to be really great. And then at the end of the whole thing, and suddenly I'm hearing noise. Okay. Oh, you know what I'm hearing?
Where's Rachel?
No?
What are you hearing?
Hang on a second. There it goes.
I don't think it's me.
No, you know what it was? It was an ad. Thank you, YouTube. It was an ad streaming in the open window. You gotta love it. You absolutely say, good Lord, we're so professional here. All right, everyone, say hi to the folks, and you know, and then we'll just get going from here.
Hello.
Hello. See, now this is the awkward lull where everyone goes, do I start? Do I go? Do I?
I'll start.
Yeah.
I'm Connor. I'm from Connor O'Brien. Next.
I'm Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. Hi.
I'm Bree from Stories on the Shelf.
I'm Brock from Let's Read. Oh.
You go first.
Well, I'm Brock from Let's Read, and I'm done.
I'm Rachel from Colonnati.
I'm Claire from Claire Russo. It's always awkward because it's my full name.
Same.
And I'm Shay from Shay Adventure.
And I'm Katie from Katie Loves to Read.
Yay!
Hey! Okay, then. And just random things keep popping up. Oh, there we go. Stopped it. All right. Well, 1 second. All right. So, 2016 was, apart from being absolutely the most terrible year of our lives in Western civilization, still had some good books to read, apart from everything else that was going on in the world. And so let's talk about some of that. We all probably had our share of favorites. We can talk about what we think people should be reading, should be talking about, and otherwise. So who wants to start?
Let me pull up my Goodreads. I should have done that. In like,
Yes.
If we were just going to do that, we didn't need to do this, right? Just
Well, I have
Goodreads
things
for
to
everything.
say about them.
Yeah.
I made a list.
Oh, Kitty's so
Of course you did.
prepared. Yeah, of course she
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I did not. I guess I did not get around, as always. There's always stuff that I need to catch up with, and that I did not get around to reading everything that I meant to read. So I have quite a few things to, quite a lot of catch up I'm playing right now. So I'm only just now getting started on Ninefox Gambit, which is a big buzz book from last year. I still have books like Two Like the Lightning and Infomocracy and some other top, very highly buzzed.
I still need to read Two Like the Lightning too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have it, actually. It's right here.
Same. Mine's right there.
Yeah.
I'm 2/3 into it, so I'm almost done. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that I can get to it by the end of today. So I love it. I love it so
I'm
much.
so glad you love it. I'm reading Seven Surrenders right now, which is the sequel, and I'm loving the sequel as well. So
Awesome.
Yeah, I finished the
Awesome.
sequel this morning too, and it was great.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about well, that can be one that we start with, and then we can just, anybody else has a favorite they want to throw out there, and we'll talk about that. And then we'll just go down the list of stuff.
well, Rachel and Brock can tell you all that I have a huge lady crush on Ada Palmer. we all were at Worldcon together, and I was like, it's Ada Palmer! She smiled at me!
We may have been stalking Ada Palmer a little bit for a couple of days.
There was a significant amount of gushing. Yes.
But Two Like the Lightning's pretty fantastic. It's simultaneously like a futuristic world with like an Enlightenment era feel. That revolves around this guy named Mycroft Canner, who may or may not be a good guy. The world's split up into hives, which is like instead of countries, you can live wherever, but you're like bound by like-minded people. And it is super interesting and maybe about to fall all the heck apart.
a lot of mention was made about like in Thomas and your videos and stuff about how Ada Palmer like wrote her own universe for this thing and like really wrote her own universe. Is the book when you guys read the book, is it obscure? Like, is it really hard to piece what this world is and what's happening in it, or is it just is it readable but alien? Like, what's sort of what's the feel of the book?
It takes some hard work to figure it out, but you kind of get into that groove of the Enlightenment era and how it's written and what she's in conversation with. Because I mean, I believe Ada Palmer is a historian of like ancient classics and the Enlightenment era, so she's talking about Thomas More and Diderot and de Sade and everybody, and it's never read any of that stuff. It doesn't make sense sometimes.
It's very clearly like in its own style. I would say the world itself, like, there's nothing terribly foreign to a concept for someone who's reads a lot of SF, right? Like, they've got augmented human minds, they've got a car system that's universally done with auto cars, but it's like the way that she writes feels a little antiquated in a really weird, different way that I found really enjoyable.
For me, to like Lightning, I think she does it like it's her sandbox. Like, she just made this own world, and to me, she's just playing with all the characters. She's playing with this world, and I actually did some research on Ada Palmer while I was reading this book because I want to know more about the author and what she was trying to get across with her book. So after I researched Ada Palmer, she does a really good job at telling like she loves worlds and she loves history, and she actually described this book as being like a futuristic historical novel. And the way she uses language and philosophy and politics, it's just like a big hodgepodge of everything that you could ever want in a science fiction book. But it does get, like, you have to get used to wrapping your head around it. It got me, I had to get into it like halfway through. I'm actually enjoying it a lot more than when I first started reading it. And she does things like when she's like, oh, you, the reader, and she's like breaking the fourth wall like all the time. So you start to question Mycroft and his intentions and if you can really trust him or not. So it's heavy. There's a lot going on in this book for sure.
Yeah, like
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say there's like nothing that she leaves out too. It's like philosophy and religion and high tech stuff and maybe some fantasy, and it makes you want to like sit down and have just a tipsy talk with her.
I did read about the first three chapters of it or so when I first got it in, and at that time I was aware there was a lot of talk about the use of language in the prose and the sort of creation of its own. There's a dialect, and I thought that was interesting, but it drew the line at not being too alien and too affected and pretentious or fake sounding or anything. I mean, it was an easy read, but it still sort of made you kind of rewire your brain a little bit to understand, all right, well, this is how we communicate in this world, and this is part of the world building is how the language is employed.
Well, like she likes to, Mycroft, he likes to say thous and thys, and he thinks that we're from like the 18th century or something because they're from the 25th century. So he's trying to break the boundaries of language by going back to like the 18th century style of like how you would speak, and to us that's alien and foreign too. So I think she just loves she's using to like the Lightning as like her little sandbox and really playing with language and messing with our politics and what if this happened and what if that happened. So I'm very much enjoying it, and I can't wait to start Seven Surrenders when it comes out. So I'm very excited.
You're gonna love it.
Awesome.
Rachel and I like definitely had a moment where we were direct messaging each other on Twitter, like, can you believe this just happened? Oh my god.
All right. Okay, so what else? Who else has a favorite? Brock, you're next in line.
I have absolutely no favorites from the year whatsoever. No, we had Revenger by Alistair Reynolds was one of my top books. I loved this so much for a variety of reasons, but for the most part, it was a chance to see an author who is really, really good and really, really established actually go beyond his previous threshold, his previous barrier. Like his science fiction, I find, is very cold, but in that like space is cold and the universe is big and empty, cold kind of stuff. Even though he puts in a lot of really good things.
Yeah, I can see that. Revelations,
and
I can see that.
I found this was a revenge tale with a lot of heart and warmth and like hugs, which is not something I would say I've seen from Alistair Reynolds before, and it just made the book so wonderful for me. Yeah.
Well, I like the idea of a revenge tale with hugs. I like that. I think that would be
like it's just very friendly, and I realized, or I only realized later that it's actually like a YA crossover book. Reading it at the time, I didn't know that. I just read it as a book, and a YA book is definitely still a book. But it was I only realized later that this would be accessible to like a lot of readers, more so than say his other stuff as well.
Gigantic than most of his. I know.
Is it a standalone novel or is it going to be a series?
It feels like a standalone. He in some interviews he said that he would want to. If he gets some ideas, he might write some stuff in it, but right now it's sort of a standalone.
This is interesting to me because I feel like a lot of those writers who, like, I know as kind of classics in the genre, but I haven't read their books yet, I tend to think that it's going to be like maybe dry or maybe like all the science and no feelings at all or that kind of thing. And I just wouldn't have imagined like Revenge with Hugs, you know, that like that seems like I've had a bit of a false impression. You know, I've never read anything of his. And I think I started one of his books, but I was really annoyed with it because it had like a French PI point of view character, and it did this like noir trope, and had to rescue a woman, and I was like, no. I've seen a lot of those growing up because so I'm like, no.
What is it? He basically said that this was his way of writing sort of just whimsy and writing more fun than he's done in the past, because he's tried to stick to a bunch of really hard rules, and this time he just said, screw it, let's just throw a universe together and have fun with it.
Right, like the idea that for something to be serious or good, it needs to be like, you know, gritty or something, or like that it can't be both whimsical and at the same time like very good and good quality and all that, is something that, like, the older I get, the more I'm like, no, I can't be bothered. I just want something that's going to be like really fun. So yeah, like all my favorites from this year, like they are like that, you know. Like I love what N.K. Jemisin is doing with The Broken Earth, but it's not like it's masterful writing, but like I'm not sure it can be a favorite because it's like, oh my god, it's so like difficult to get through emotionally, you know.
Yeah, very very bleak and brutal tale. Which
stone cold.
Yeah. Some people were getting a few chat comments. I know some people weren't entirely fond of Revenger.
Yeah, no, I wasn't.
No, there was there's a it's had a warm instead of a hot reception. But.
No. Okay. So prosecutor Katie, tell us.
I find it very dull. I was just so bored for the whole thing. And if it hadn't been a review copy, I probably would have just left it. But normally with review copies, I try to finish them out if I can, but I'm so bored. Like the characters were not convincing at all, and it was boring. That's why I didn't like it. The world was very cool, though. I will give it that.
I think I felt similarly at the beginning of the novel, because there's an odd bit of setup going on. Like the character is, I would say, a Mary Sue. She doesn't have a destiny. She's not, like, the universe is acting around her and she's just observing it all. And at first I thought, this is kind of bad writing. This is a poor character. But some of the things that happen much, much later in the book, like right towards the end, I do not want to spoil anything, really shift that. And then it's sort of like she was deliberately set up as a Mary Sue so that later on she could... I can't say it.
Rise above it is basically what.
But like even what is it? Paul from Come and Touch of Fantasy had the same problem with the book at the beginning. He's just like, this character is boring. She's not doing anything. She has no agency. She's very passive. So little is going on, and everybody else has more. Like all the other characters have way more character and agency and everything throughout the rest of the novel. So I can understand, like it's definitely what a lot of people are experiencing with this book is sort of a dullness with it. Yeah.
And I will say,
someone in chat is asking if we think that it would appeal more to people that don't normally like sci-fi as much. Like, say, do fantasy readers like it as more than like traditional sci-fi readers do?
It's easier to get into than his other books, but I wouldn't exactly call it gateway Alistair Reynolds, because I think you'd still hit that hard wall if you tried to read his other stuff.
Because that is one thing that I will say in defense of Alistair Reynolds is that I fully understand the first. It took me 2 attempts to do Revelation Space, and the first one I'm just like I can't crack through the shell of this thing. It was extremely dense. It was very clearly a brilliantly imagined future, but I just wasn't in the headspace for it, so I set it aside. I'm like, this guy's not for me. I initially gave the book a kind of a poor review, DNF, but there were things in it that stuck in my head, and I just kept remembering, but that was so neat. That was a really cool idea, and they wouldn't. I couldn't get them out, and so I just thought, well, I'll give it a second. And then on the second attempt, I sort of fell into it. I guess I was ready for it at that point. So I can understand people not connecting with Alistair Reynolds. You know, if you're, especially because of the reasons that you pointed out, Brock, is that he does have these, space is cold and vast and empty and it's all big. And,
yeah.
You know.
And there is, yeah. And in this novel,
scary and inexplicable. Yeah.
Very scary. There's a lot. There is stuff in this novel that is not explained, and you do have to kind of guess as to what the heck it means, or how this solar system that the story takes place in got to be the way that it is, because it isn't explained. It's just sort of, this is it. You have to deal with it, and it's a hurdle to jump over. And I don't know. I like to have that explanation, and it wasn't there. I still enjoyed the book a lot, but if you're looking for that kind of an explanation, this book does not have that. It's question mark most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
I'm gonna like, at least from my vantage point, bounce over to the other side of this queue here, and put Samantha on the spot and say, what did you like last year, Sam?
I had a few favorites, but I keep thinking of Monstrous by Marjorie Liu. It's a graphic novel. I don't know if anyone else here has read it, but I adore it. Yay! Yeah, and it's hard to explain because I was thinking, how am I going to explain this graphic novel? And I need to do a review of it. I've said it a number of times because it's so hard to just jump into it and kind of explain it. But it's a sort of steampunk, so it kind of combines fantasy and sci-fi in a really fun way. There's a lot of talk of gods and magic, and the main character is an amputee, so that's a cool element. And she's kind of this fusion of what we don't really understand quite yet, these like ancient kind of creatures with humans. They kind of bred together, and then there's this other race, and they're kind of being prosecuted as they do, you know, whenever someone's different in science fiction and fantasy. So she's kind of encountering secrets about her family's past and encountering these ancient relics, and all these different kinds of people are trying to get to her. So you have all of these things with politics and religion and beliefs and everything all in one, and magical talking cats. So
there you go.
It's pretty great, and the art is
gorgeous.
stunning. So I'm really looking forward to additional volumes with that series right now.
Okay.
It'll probably, I think the art appeals a lot to, if you read any kind of manga or watched any kind of anime, it's got a feel like that, but
it's like an elevated version of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much elevated.
I saw the first issue in the comic book store, and I flipped through the back, and it had Marjorie Liu, who is the author and the creator. She actually mentioned the reasons why she created Monstrous in the first place, and her reasoning was because of her grandparents who are Asian, and she's half Asian and half American, and where does she fit in our society, and how do you define identity in that culture? So after I read her reasons behind it, I was totally on board. I bought the first volume, and just knowing more about the author and the creator itself helps me understand the work and what their messages are trying to get across as well. So I know it has like, I think it's up to like its 8th or 9th issue, but I want to buy like the 2nd volume when it comes out. So I've been waiting. So I don't know what else is going on from the 1st volume, but it's definitely worth the read if you guys want to check out any graphic novels. I'd recommend that one too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it can be dense feeling. I've heard some people say it's really confusing. I just kind of expect graphic novels to be confusing when you first go into them. So I'm always fine with that. But yeah, there's definitely, and there's even a horror element if you're into horror, which I'm usually not, but there's like that kind of gore,
there is a lot of
brutal, very brutal element to it. So it's fun. It's fun.
So while we're on graphic novel, Descender?
Descender!
I have just bought the 3rd volume of Descender, and I haven't read it yet. I'm so excited to start it. The first volume came out in 2015, and I loved it, and I nominated it for a Hugo. And the 2nd volume, I think, for me, like went even better. It's about a robot, android robot who's a little boy. I'm not doing a great job of explaining here. It's about a robot that looks like a little boy, and he was a companion robot for a family, and he like wakes up in this empty colony, and everybody is gone, and he's looking for his boy, and he can't find him. And then meanwhile, you realize that in the rest of the world, robots have gone out of fashion in a spectacular manner after some robots came out of nowhere and killed a bunch of humans. And so now all the robots are being captured and smelted. And so you follow this little robot as he's trying to find his human again. And you know, there's a lot, as in many stories about robots, about sentience and what makes you human even if you're a robot and that kind of stuff. And there's a massive cliffhanger at the end of the 2nd volume. So yeah.
You're going to love the 3rd.
Very excited. And I think the 2nd and 3rd both came out in 2016, so they both count for the Hugo ballot, just saying.
Yeah. And the art is watercolors. Dustin Wen does it, and they're just gorgeous.
So
if you have a chance to look at his Instagram account, like everything he does is beautiful.
Yeah, it's by Jeff Lemire and Dustin, is it Engren?
Wen, I think.
Yeah, well, I don't know how to pronounce it, so I should just shut up.
So it's actually like analog, analog, old, proper watercolors, not.
Proper watercolors.
So
like you can see the texture of the watercolor paper when they transfer it to the print on image, like the magazine paper. It's
cool. Good.
Yeah, I definitely want to buy some prints of it for my house.
For sure. Me too.
Okay. I want to. Rachel, can we hear you? Rachel is having some tech issues. Rachel?
Doesn't seem to be working.
No, we can.
We can hear you.
We can, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully we'll get her back, Rachel. If you can come back, keep trying, okay? Because tech issues are what they are, and it would be a pity not to have you, because Rachel reads everything, and so she'd certainly have some opinions on some good stuff from last year. But I'm gonna grab Katie now and see Katie. Katie, what did you love to read last year?
Let's see your list.
Hey, you see what I did with that? You see?
Yeah. As I said, I have a list. But will I go for the predictable one? Like, I mean, Every Hearted Doorway was my favorite of last year, but I feel like nobody's probably going to talk about Children of Earth and Sky, and as like the person who's obsessed with Gavriel Kay on BookTube SFF, I feel I probably should.
That is my big shame right now, that I still have to. That's still on my TBR. And it was not read months ago when it should have been.
It's kind of dense, though. I think if you don't commit to his books, if you try and read other things, or if you put them down and come back to them, it's really difficult.
That was probably my mistake in reading the book. It was one of the 2 books I did not finish this year, because I read it so slowly. I didn't get into the momentum of the story and had to leave it off to the side, unfortunately.
But he is known for that. I mean, he does these gradually paced epic tales. Like if you read his earlier books, especially something like River of Stars, where the story just gently unfolds. It just kind of, it's like rolling out a big rug in front of you, and you're like, it's just taking forever and ever and ever. But then by the time you get to the climactic scenes, it's so, what's happening is so intense, and it didn't beat you over the head to get you there. It just drew you in, and so that by the time everything is crashing and falling to pieces, it's so. Anyway, we've got super loud, I hope it's not me, but there's super loud feedback somewhere, some room noise or air conditioner noise or fan noise or something. So anyway, I'm going to mute myself when I'm not talking.
For those who have read Gavriel Kay, is there like an entry level, what's the entry level book that you would recommend?
I've been thinking about this because I keep getting asked this. I think if you're going to start, maybe start with Sailing to Sarantium or Tagana. Either of those are pretty good place, but I would say before you go anywhere near Children of Earth and Sky, please read the Sarantine Mosaic Duology, because it's not as good if you don't get all of the context that has gone on however many years before, because there are a load of allusions made back. And it's just kind of nice. It just kind of makes you feel nostalgic for having read them.
And it's also an easy, it's an accessible way to get into his particular style of low fantasy, which is he really, there's not much fantasy in a Guy Gavriel Kay fantasy novel unless you go way back to something like the Fiona of Our Tapestry, which is very traditionally structured high fantasy. He does these low fantasies where they're basically just historical novels with the names changed to protect the innocent, basically. So Sarantium is Byzantium. And it's a Byzantine Empire tale, and every once in a while a character will have a magical encounter somewhere with some beast or some specter or something like that, and like there you go, that's your fantasy. And the same thing with the Under Heaven and River of Stars, which are based on I think Tang and Song Dynasty China. It's a nation called Kitai, and there's ghosts. And then there's a fox spirit, and then that's like 5% of the fantasy content. That's the content of the whole series, and then the rest of it is about the collapse of this empire.
I was going to say.
So, but he's just so good at that. That's his thing.
And the description and stuff is just masterful. He also is a poet. That's another thing that he happens to do. But it's just the way he writes is beautiful. And you really feel like you're there. It's very immersive. And also, as it has been pointed out to me, somehow I managed to read a lot of books by people who have law degrees. He has a law degree. So there's that.
Great minds or something, right?
Yeah.
And Guy Gavriel Kay, for folks who still don't know, got his start in all of this by editing the Silmarillion with Christopher Tolkien. He helped assemble the Silmarillion into a readable shape. And that was
readable shape.
All things. Yeah. Well, Tolkien himself didn't want the Silmarillion really to be published in his lifetime, because he's like, who the hell would read this? And it's like
you don't even know Tolkien. It's like many nerds.
It's like the Old Testament. He said, no one, you're not going to read this for entertainment, but
it is the Old Testament of fantasy, honestly. Let's be honest.
So, okay, Connor, tell us your book. Tell us your books.
I think my favorite SFF book that was published last year is probably False Hearts by Laura Lamb. Did anyone read this?
Yeah.
Not yet, but I want to.
I thought it was really cool. I also like the fact that it's incredibly diverse. The main two characters are both black, and they were conjoined twins, and then they were separated when they were 15. And it's a future science fiction where they have dream sharing and everything like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And one of the sisters, I can't remember their names because I read it so long ago, but one of the sisters ends up having to impersonate the other one to figure out what kind of crime stuff she was a part of. So I really liked this one.
Yeah, and it also has this really cool backstory of a weird cult.
Oh yeah.
Which I'm weak for that stuff.
Yeah, so
and it's really brutal as well. It doesn't it doesn't pull its punches either.
Yeah, the girls, the conjoined twins, were in, what was it, Mavis Hearth or something like that was the name of the cult. And then
The heart. I can't remember.
yeah, and then they're also bisexual, both of them. So yeah.
Who is it by?
Laura Lamb.
Who has written some YA, but this is actually an adult.
Yeah,
SF.
it's also going to be like a series of standalones. So the next one won't be following these characters, but will be set in the same world, I believe. So I'm looking forward to that one when that one comes out. I don't know when it does though.
Yeah, she has a pantomime series that a lot of people have been really liked in YA. It's pantomime and shadow play and a third book that I can't remember the title of. I haven't read them, but people really, really rave about them, and they have I think a non-binary protagonist, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're right. I believe I've seen it on a lot of lists.
But like,
yeah, so Diversathon.
yeah. Also, Laura's really nice.
Yeah, good timing for it. Okay. Right. Well, who's that? Who we got? Claire, have you?
Well, I mean, I've definitely said things, but I'll take another one.
I should do another one. Yeah, I'm just trying to. I can't even remember what order everyone's.
I'll talk about an obscure book that I'm sure no one else has read it and loved, and that is A Closed in Common Orbit by Becky Chambers, which we all raved a lot last year about The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which is the first book in this kind of series of somewhat standalone books set in the same world, and this is a follow-up, and it's a much more kind of The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet is an ensemble space opera novel that's very diverse and really fun, and she goes into a lot of world building stuff, but like for me, I almost thought there was too much in there. Like it was almost too episodic for me, you know. It kind of I loved it and I loved the world building, but I kind of wished there was a stronger through line. Cat.
She keeps messing with the phone cord, the little headphones, and now she's knocking down my water bottle.
Just wants to be famous on the internet.
No, get over here, buddy.
Anyway, Close in Common Orbit is exactly what I wanted out of a follow-up, because it's a more intimate novel and it has a stronger through line, and it follows one of the characters from the first book. We follow the AI of the ship from the first book. I'm not going to say much more than that because it'd be very spoilery if I did, but we follow her after the events of the first book, and we also follow an engineer who's a friend of like the crew of the ship called Pepper, and there's like two timeline. We follow Pepper when she's a child and she's growing up, and she has some really weird circumstances, but there's some survival elements which I really like, and then it's all about like just found family and robots and just all the good things, but wonderful world building from the first book, and yeah, it's great, you guys. So good.
And both storylines make you want to cry, just like ugly tears.
I know, so many feels. I kept like getting a little bit constricted when I was reading it, like no. I thought that the beginning was a bit slow, but because it goes back and forth between two storylines and two characters, it's fine. Like you really kind of, as soon as you're kind of like, oh, I hope something happens, you go to the next chapter in another point of view and something does happen. So that was my only kind of like criticism with it. And I thought by the time we were kind of like midway through, I was 100%. And yeah, it works so well. I keep thinking about other thing. I keep thinking about little things that that work so well with this dual storyline thing. I just keep thinking about it, which is a good sign.
Well, and
it's
I
one
think
of those stories that has little memorable moments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Becky Chambers really benefits from a more streamlined story. Like I felt the same way that A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet was almost too episodic. But the with the dynamic between Pepper and Lovey and the way that it eventually intertwines. It was just so good.
That's a big criticism of Longway, is that it doesn't really have a plot, as it were. There's no narrative through line through the entire book. It's essentially a series of scenes of these characters having little adventures like that, and so that makes the pacing of it feel a little bit start and stop. But
I mean, it's like the difference between a really good TV show that has a Monster of the Week format and a really good TV show that has an actual arc,
Mm-hmm.
Like, that does make a really big difference.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Lol momenti. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I've got a tab open to the Nebula, or the SFF boards, where we've got the Nebula reading list, where people are just recommending stuff because that's about to happen. And so I'm going to go kind of from like the top most, and it's interesting what people are just, all you have to do to recommend something is add a book to the list, and then if you want to click the thumbs up, and then that adds another little upvote to it. But I'm going to go down the list because there are some here that are favorites of mine, and there's some here that I know a lot of other people have read, they think pretty highly of, and then there are a couple of surprises. But the most upvotes has gone to All the Birds in the Sky, which is a book that I really, really enjoyed from last year. It's not one that set well with everybody, but I thought that it had that sense of whimsy and and off-kilter. It did something with urban fantasy that I actually liked, and it didn't give me the cliches, and it gave me a lot of warmth between these two misfit characters, and a lot of satire that was just delightful, I thought. But probably not the sort of thing that would be to everyone's.
Yeah, I've read it too, and I saw Thomas's review of it, and what got me was when you said the urban fantasy reminded you a lot of Charles de Lint, and I love Charles de Lint, so that's what pushed me to actually buy it, and I read it, and I can see how that book isn't for everybody. It is very offbeat and quirky at times, but I think it has a very common message I think that everyone can relate to when it comes to fantasy and sci-fi, and these two dichotomies that really aren't all that different. I would say that I have mixed feelings about it though. But I do enjoy the book overall as what it is and what Charles J. Anders was supposed to do with it.
Well, I think it has a lot of warmth that people don't give it credit for. And it's just, I don't know, the approach, you have to have a skewed sense of humor, perhaps, like I do, to sort of appreciate.
I love the first half. The first half was amazing.
I was going to say,
growing up.
Yeah.
First half is
But I know not a favorite of everyone, but right below that, the second most number of upvotes is Borderline.
Yes,
Michelle Baker, and that's supposedly that's the big UF.
That's awesome.
So let's talk about who's read Borderline and who wants to scream about it.
Well, it was awesome. It's a contemporary urban fantasy, and it's about Millie, and she is a paraplegic. She has a mental illness. And she tried to commit suicide, and in her failed attempt, she lost both of her legs. So she's in a wheelchair. And it sets place in an asylum where she is currently residing in. And someone comes up to her and offers her a job opportunity in the Arcadia Project. And she takes the job offer, and she's introduced to this whole new world of the Fae and magic folk. And it is so good. I loved it. I am so looking forward to Phantom Pains. And it comes out this year. So definitely you guys should read it if you haven't already.
What was it called again?
Borderline.
I'll put it on my Goodreads
I don't have
list.
the book.
I know I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Rachel was talking about that recently. I think in one of her wrap-ups. I have that on my to-read list.
It is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, I thought.
And I think because I read it back like early spring last year, so I'm trying to remember everything that I read about it. But I do remember in the Arcadia Project, I think it also took place like in Hollywood, right, Brianne? Yeah. So I think the whole idea of it taking place like in California and Hollywood, and with the Fae folk, and how everything starts to bleed in together, and what's really going on. So it has a lot of mystery to it. And it's a thriller too. It's a page turner, like I've always been reading a lot of slow burning books that takes a lot of time to get into, but with Borderline, it like jumps right off the first of the page, and like you're constantly turning the pages to see what happens next. I don't have it with me though, because all my books are packed away. So I would show you what it looked like, but I don't have it. So it's really good.
Yeah, and I think it's fun because it deals with some of those topics that you want in a heavy hitter, right? Like mental illness and societal pressures and things like that. But at the same time, it does it in a super lighthearted, like easy to get into way.
Well, let's see what's next up. Here's City of Blades. Robert Jackson Bennett has gotten a lot of upvotes. And then after that is a book that I got the arc of, but I haven't read it yet, and I haven't seen a whole lot of buzz about it. It's a book by Erica Satifka, new author to me, called Stay Crazy. Does anybody know anything about this book? Because it's like number 4 on the upvotes of the Nebula reading list. Okay, big confused silence. So that's, yeah, okay. Well, let's see what it has to say.
Can you spell that for a good...
Yeah.
Can you repeat that for good read purposes?
Yeah, okay. It's a book called Stay Crazy, and the author, again, Erica Satifka. There it is, Satifka. And it says, let's see, where's okay, after a breakdown at college, landed Emmeline Kalberg in a mental hospital. She's struggling to get her life on track. She's back in her hometown, and everyone knows she's crazy, but the 12 pills she takes every day keep her anxiety and paranoia in check. So when a voice that calls itself Escadex begins talking to Em from a box of frozen chick nuggets, she's sure that it's real and not another hallucination. An evil entity is taking over the employees of Savertown, USA, sucking out their energy so it can break into Escadex's dimension. Escadex needs, it's probably tongue-in-cheek, you guys, I'm guessing, just by the tone of this. Escadex needs M's help to save his dimension and to keep hers from collapsing. So we have essentially an alien invasion through frozen food, as it were. And yeah, that's, I'm guessing it's a probably parody or a satire or comedy.
Satire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same.
But, yeah. So, but I don't know anything about it. But the funny thing about nebulas and the so some stuff will get on there, and you're like, what is this? I don't know if it's just a degree of this person is known very well in SFF and pretty much just to SFF people. But I don't know. I was just curious if anyone else was familiar with that book at all. That would be a no. Okay. So, yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to move on then to one that is a definite favorite of mine that hasn't, I don't think, been talked about yet, and that's Arabella of Mars. And that's, I think, certainly delightful YA and wonderful adventure generally. And David Levine is a charming guy, but
he is.
Yeah,
he's so cute.
Isn't he though? It's like. Yeah.
He's so adorable. Yeah, like I haven't read that book yet. I have an arc of it, but I met him and he was just like so happy. I think Connor was with me when we met him, and he like saw the line. It was like a little small line, and he's like, "Oh, people!" And he had stickers and like
he was so excited.
He was, and he took a picture of us. Like it was just adorable.
And like he freaked out when he saw Sana's Polaroid.
Yeah, she had like a Polaroid camera, and he was like, "I haven't seen one of these in years." It was adorable. He's adorable. So anyway, not the point. His book, I'm sure, is amazing as well.
No, that's fine. I mean, we can talk all about that because that's definitely right. Have you seen his Hamilton or Arabella rap video that he did?
No.
Yes, he's done. He has a YouTube channel, and he's got his Arabella / Hamilton rap on it.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Like literally everything I find out, every new thing I found out about this book or this bloke, I'm like, I need it right now. And I have to wait a week because I can't read it during Diversathon because that would not be fair. But I have had my eye on this book for so long, and I resisted buying it in hardcover because, I was like, I'll wait for the paperback. And well, in the end, I bought it with like voucher money that I got for Christmas, and I'm like, it's sitting there. I want to read it so much. But
I think there are enough diverse elements in it to count, probably.
But own voices is important. I mean, like literally, my Diversathon TBR is very, very long already, so I'm not going to get to everything.
Right, but it feels new and fresh and exciting, like an adventure novel, but at the same time, it feels sort of charmingly old-fashioned. And that's kind of the appeal. I think a lot of it is that it's just, I keep forgetting what the series is, but apparently there is, in addition to the Master and Commander series, Patrick O'Brien, and there's that noise again. Is anybody else?
Free.
Oh.
Connor.
Okay.
I figured it out a while ago.
Oh, okay. Anyway, there we all, everybody. Grab your fingers. No, but in addition to the Master Commander stuff, there is apparently like an old, like from back in the day series of, you know, Young Girl Goes to Sea adventure books, and he told me the title of them, and I forget what it was, but he, someone, when he was putting the book together, I think his agent said, "Oh, it's like those." He's like, "I've never heard of those," and so he read a few, and he's like, "Yes, this is just what I'm doing." But yeah, it's a high seas adventure in space where space is full of air. And people and the planets are a little closer together, and so everyone travels from Mars to Earth and back on big sailing ships. And there are sea battles, but in the air between planets in space. But it's not the sea, but it's still ships. And it's just fun. It's just a you know, good time if you wanted to. Been talking about earlier about I don't want a book where I have to, you know, parse all of this, process all this difficult world building information. I just want to kick my feet up and eat popcorn and have a fun book. It's perfect
I think
for
it's
that.
also set in, like the 1700s or something like that, isn't
Well,
it?
no, right at 1800, I think.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention, in case people are interested, he was very, very recently on an episode of I Should Be Writing, which is Meryl Lafferty's writing podcast, and she has an interview of him, and he was saying some of the smartest stuff that I've ever heard about writing. Like, if you're like interested, or if you like dabble in writing or whatever, which I do in so far as when I have time, sometimes I type some stuff, you know, like, but I'm very interested in how the narrative works and storytelling and all that. And he was so smart. I think it's very worth a listen if you are interested at all in like the writing craft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the second book comes out this year, right? I think I saw the title. I think I just said that I wanted to read it on Goodreads. I think it's like something about going to Venus.
Yeah, Arabella and the Moons of Venus or something like that, or the Oceans of Venus or something. So
yeah, I thought the like culture that he built with the Mars population was really interesting as well, and how like the females were like dominant, but then they like controlled, like the certain females controlled everyone. So I thought that was cool.
Mm-hmm. And then there was just the way the humans regard the Martian natives, very much a commentary on the whole colonialism thing there.
Yeah, and then they ended up being like badass.
Yeah. So
it's Arabella in the Battle of Venus that comes out this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one, if you're looking for something, if you're still trying to put together possible YA choices for the BookTube SFF Awards, which are coming, that's one to think of for that. Yeah.
Speaking of YA books to keep an eye on the Edge of Gone by Corinne Davis.
Oh, right.
Fantastic. It's about
I am
girl.
reading for Diverthison.
Yes, you're gonna love it. It's about a girl who has autism. She lives, I think, in Amsterdam, and she, like, the world is going to end, and they know that the world is going to end, and her family can't get to this bunker in time. The last chance they have is to try and convince the ship to let them stay on while the asteroid hits, so that any kind of fallout won't hurt them. But she has autism and is having a hard time justifying that to the ship. Her mom is a drug addict. Her sister is a trans woman. It's a really fantastic story. Super, super fun.
Is the author autistic as well? If she's writing from a kid who has autism?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah. And Corinne Davis has really, she started, or she helped to start Own Voices, didn't she?
Yeah, she started it. And I think it was really interesting as well, because it was kind of different from any kind of YA sci-fi or even adult sci-fi that I read, because it was kind of all about what does it mean to be valuable, and can having a disability kind of make you less valuable, or is that just a load of rubbish? Like, are you valuable in and of yourself, or do people need to worry about the fact that you have a disability?
Yeah, it was very thought-provoking. Like, for a YA book, it really makes you think. And I mean, that might just be my own YA
And
thinkiness.
Corinne Davis's novel before this also had like characters, like the main character, one of the characters is on the spectrum, the ASD.
I think the one before this was Otherbound.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking. Okay.
Which it's not. I don't think the character is on the spectrum, but there's a character who's blind.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Okay.
Yeah, Corinne is on the board of We Need Diverse Books, I believe, or like in the kind of founding team for We Need Diverse Books. So.
And I think she's also involved in disability in Kid Lit as well.
She does all the super cool things.
And she has some rock and pink hair.
Yeah. Okay, now in the chat, some people are going, "Hey, has anybody talked about Emanume yet?" So, Planetfall and After Atlas was the sequel last year, and again, I guess talking about science fiction stories that deal, among other things, with disability, right? And so, who's been through some of you have been through After Atlas, so let's
been through it. Is it like that?
Yeah.
I'm reading it right now, and she doesn't pull her punches. She never does, but it's you're making it sound very traumatic.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to. No. But I mean, that is the premise of Planetfall, right? Or has to do something with the premise of Planetfall.
Planetfall is a little bit about mental illness and anxiety disorders.
Okay. All right.
After Atlas, not so much.
Okay.
Perhaps I think a better way to approach it is like it's much more about trauma and stress and what results from that, especially in abusive households. It's a like a noir kind of story. It's actually very fun to read. It's a mystery. But the main character was part of essentially a cult. The cult that sent the ship in Planetfall into space, or what resulted from it.
And all right, well then, anybody else want to toss something out? Because there are, again, several others here. Underground Railroad, which is coming up as part of Diversathon. That's like the group book for Diversathon. Has gotten a good handful of upvotes from the Nebula people. Obelisk Gate, of course, Ninefox Gambit. Ninefox Gambit is one of those, again, throws you into the deep end, hard science fiction stories. A lot like, I would say, I'm only about 80 to 100 pages into it right now. I would be a lot farther into it if I hadn't been spending my time with a certain terrible book that we're not going to mention. But it's like Ancillary Justice, and it's like The Three-Body Problem, in that it's that sort of book. It just kind of tosses you into its concepts and expects you to catch up. And to put it mildly,
I would almost argue that it doesn't expect you to catch up. It really, it purposefully leaves a bunch of things obscure and undefined because it's the nature of the conflict of Ninefox Gambit and the. I don't want to go and list what the whole story is, but when you have one side versus another side, there's always something driving the conflict. And in this case, because you don't understand the specifics of this conflict, that you only have one side versus another, but because they're ideologically different and that's it, that's all you can comprehend about it at the start of the story, that it allows you to look at really what both sides are doing and analyze them a lot more than you would if there was a specific it's about trade and taxation or something like that, right? I don't know. I think it's the perfect setup for a conflict because they mention calendars. That's the basis of time for all this kind of thing. And one group has one calendar, another group has another calendar, but because they have a different calendar, they need to be wiped out and destroyed because it's different than what we do. I found that it was a calendar worked as like the best type of thing you could have a conflict over because it's about the governance of time. And whenever you have any type of conflict between, again, ideologies, you're looking at differences in the way people see and perceive the world, and how those conflicts are created because there's just no understanding between either side. Anyway, that's my piece about it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if there was a point or thought to that.
No, I think that's a pretty good point on it. But I think, like, kind of what Thomas was getting at, I think it's one of those books where if you can make it through the first 70 or 80 pages, you know enough that you can process what's going on. But for like the first 70 or 80 pages, it's very much like kind of that steep learning curve where you're trying to pick up all of these things so that you can get what's happening. Because if you don't kind of understand those world building aspects, you're going to be a bit lost. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely worth persevering with. And personally, I tend to enjoy every so often reading those tougher books that do ask me to actually think. I think Arcadia by Ian Pierce is another one that came out this year that's similar. Well, it came out this year in the US, but not the UK. But it's when you're thrown into the deep end and you have to think and you have to get to grips with the world. Because sometimes, I don't know, spoon feeding, it gets a bit boring. Like, of course, it's nice to have a book where you know what's going on, but sometimes it's nice to be challenged a little bit in what you're reading.
Yeah, the book
I'd have to work a little bit.
Just because of that. One thing I like, as even though this book is challenging, it is like super rewarding, especially on like an emotional front. With events towards the end, I was really into it. I was like, I'm feeling these characters. I am feeling what they're going through, and I always want to talk about the end, so I won't ever talk about the end. But where they wind up was just so like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you know, when the next book comes out, I'm definitely like grabbing it right away because it's.
So it's one where you have to work for the payoff, but there is a real payoff.
Oh, there really was.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I was visiting my grandparents, and because they live in the middle of nowhere in Ireland, there's no phone service. So I went on a half-hour walk just to find out if it was a book in a series, because I needed to know when I could get my hands on the next book. So the publisher have agreed to send it to me once they have arcs ready, because I need it. Definitely.
Yeah. Hanu Rainiemi is another writer who I was thinking of. The way he puts his books together. Yes, starting Ninefox Gambit, that kind of just slotting you into the world and saying sink or swim. But okay, all right. So let's get into now. We've done our first hour. Let's get into the fun part. Let's talk about unfavorites. And so I'm sure everyone's clamoring to start this one. Not just someone speak up, and we'll just let the thing flow as it will. Okay.
Carolyn Ives Gilman, Dark Orbit. I read that one this year. I know a lot of people read it last year, I read it in 2016. Sorry, this is for. I thought it was an amazing book about the nature of perception, and also how when especially with disabilities and senses, when people don't have the same, getting tongue-tied, in regards to blindness, when people don't have similar senses of perception, in this case, when they lack the thing of sight, they don't consider themselves blind, and they perceive the world in a way that people who are sighted can't. And it's not that they lack perception, it's just that their context, the actual contextualization of anything that they perceive is different. And I also loved that Dark Orbit was kind of that classic, classic science fiction setup where you have a bunch of people going to a planet, and that planet itself has a bunch of like that one defining ecosystem, unique properties that create like the big mystery for the story. So yes, Dark Orbit.
Good, because I bought that the other day.
Yay!
Yeah, I saw it at a secondhand bookstore, and I was like, I'm gonna take that. So the fact that you enjoyed it reassures me that's gonna be awesome.
I highlighted a lot of passages in it. There's a lot of really well written passages, and I have a lot of thoughts about it, but I'm not going to dump them all out today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that was very Canadian of Brock to be unable to think of a book that he didn't like for the books we don't like segment of.
Wait, did I miss?
We all just love listening to you so much. I just say I'm going for the hell of it. Just
at first, I thought he
By
was.
the way, the chat has decided that Brock is starting a podcast. Because we miss him.
Yes, and yes, yeah,
I am 10 out of 10 for this idea.
yeah. Well, and narrate audiobooks. Someone else suggested. So
I like I half expected you to say like a huge butt and then say that you like hated
Oh,
it.
Yeah.
I totally missed the bad part of
That's-
the books we
It's
did
the
not like.
best.
I was just so eager.
you're just too polite, bro. That's fine. That's why we have you. So, okay, but who had a crushing disappointment or a heartbreak? We all have at least one. There's nothing wrong with talking about it. Let it out. Let's hug it out. Who?
Everfair.
Okay.
Everfair.
Oh, I have that one.
By Nisi
I haven't
Shaw?
read it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to be so. Yeah, Katie, your face is how I feel about it.
Yeah. I have some gripes about Everfair, but I'll let you guys.
Okay.
It's
steampunk in the Congo, and it's told from a number of different perspectives, with kind of an interesting timeline setup. But mostly, I just felt really disconnected from the characters. I didn't find the plot to be terribly cohesive. It made me a little bit sad in my heart.
Did you finish the book, or did you DNF it?
I finished it.
You finished it? Okay.
A difficulty that I had with Everfair is that it races through its narrative so quickly that it's difficult to, all of the bits where I was really wanting to connect more firmly, I wasn't, because what happens, especially in the early parts of the book, is that we're establishing this colony, and you get these brief chapters, three or four pages each, but then between each one, months of time will elapse, and so it felt like, I'm just having this history thrown at me too fast, and I'm not really I don't feel immersed in the environments and the world and the lives and the struggles of these people, because she's waiting to get to the cool steampunky bits. And because it's for example, again, not trying to be too spoilery, but there's a chapter where one chapter we're in the colony and everyone's doing fine, and then that chapter ends, and then suddenly we find out that it's been attacked and wiped out, and months have passed in between these two chapters, and everyone's off hiding in a cave, and you're like, wow, there's some pretty serious drama that I would have liked to have seen there. But it just kind of, it's too pell-mell, and it's too, and then it moves and fits and starts, but too quickly that I wasn't able to get the catharsis that I wanted, the connection that I wanted.
Yeah, I felt like she was trying to do too much. She had this idea that she was going to cover all of this time, and she was going to have these steampunk elements. But also another thing that frustrated me was that she would have these random fantasy elements introduced, someone who was able to see through the eyes of 8 different cats. And we would have that for one chapter and it would never be revisited again. And I was like, but that was cool. I wanted to know more about that. But no, there was no possibility of that. The one thing I will give Everfair was it had the only love triangle this year that didn't piss me off for simply being a love triangle. And that was because it was a lesbian love triangle, and we don't get those. So at least it was.
Yeah, I agree. And those characters got the most development.
Okay, Sam. Hi.
I don't have any hates from 2016 as far as 2016 releases. I'm reading a lot of backlist, so my hates were old hates. But the most recent one was a YA, Eon by Alison Goodman. I know a lot of people liked it when it's a 2008 YA release, and it's supposed to be about a girl who is dressing up as a boy to become a dragon trainer in an Asian-inspired fantasy. But that's kind of weird too, because it's Chinese and Japanese, and it's this fusion thing, and it was garbage. So yeah, it took way too long to get to the point. It had some really interesting elements as far as gender discussions and even LGBT stuff going on. There's a trans woman character who's amazing, but other than that, the main character has a severe lack of agency for a girl in this situation, and it was so overly predictable and beats you over the head with the foreshadowing hundreds of pages in advance. And then the characters just meander around why are all these bad things happening? And I can't figure out what's going on. And you as the reader are like, yo, I figured this out 250 pages ago. Oh, look, now it's getting revealed. So It was a very irritating, one of the last books I read, very irritating book. So won't be continuing that series.
I cannot stand that when you have this character wandering through the story who is just scratching their heads over stuff that I've known all along, and you're just waiting for them to catch up. And it's like, the story could be moving forward if... So,
yeah, it happened multiple times too, because at the very beginning there's a thing where you're like, "Ooh, I wonder what's gonna happen," and then it happens, and then it happens over and over and over again. So throughout the story, you're just sitting there like waiting for these big reveals to happen that you know are gonna happen. So,
yeah, it's okay. Okay, who else wants to jump in? Come on, we're booktubers. We must have something that we want to shame live to the world.
Will we say Sleeping Giants, Thomas? Because I know you probably have many things to say.
Yeah. Well,
that's a big one.
Yeah.
I had that one on my queue, but I never got around to getting around to it. So
you didn't miss much.
Yeah, it's a missed opportunity, is what it is. You know, you have starts off terrific premise, you know, a hook, right? You know, you've got the elevator pitch is really good. You know, body pieces of a 6,000-year-old alien battle robot are found in various locations around the world. They are all gathered together and rounded up, and the giant alien robot is built. And then a whole lot of nothing proceeds to happen from that point on. They figure out how it works. Oops, we accidentally destroyed an airport. And there's, but you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little too old-fashioned in this regard. If you're going to give me a giant battle robot story, I want the giant battle robot to do giant battle robot things. And we didn't get a lot of that. What we got were characters that were not were difficult to connect to, because the entire writing, the choice that Sylvain Neuvel made in writing the story was to do it all in the form of interview transcripts.
Oh, okay.
And the interviewer...
Interviewing a giant battle robot?
No, he is this nameless sort of like official, you know, Man in Black kind of guy, and so he becomes effectively the viewpoint character for the whole story, and he doesn't really have much of a character to himself beyond, you know, being this sort of sinister, shadowy cartoon villain guy who never uses contractions when he speaks. That's how you know you have a bad guy, because they always say things like "do not" and "will not" and "cannot," and they never say "don't" and "won't" and "can't," because to be villainous you have to emphasize the words. Yeah, it's those kinds of cliches, but there was just no.
Though would it have been if it had been the battle robot who was interviewing?
Yeah,
that was a missed opportunity there. I like that idea.
Yes, the battle robot kind of becoming aware, and then from its point of view, and smashing all of these little creatures that it has no idea what it is.
It becomes Megatron.
That sort of thing.
Yeah,
but
Transformers.
Yeah. But imagine like Megatron as this giant sort of undeveloped baby who doesn't really get what it's doing and is kicking over the anthills and has no idea. See, there you go. There's a possible way to think. But it was dull and did nothing in terms of, you know, what you expect to get when you have a story about a battle robot. So there's a sequel.
There's a sequel I heard about. I wonder if that's going to reveal anything, and maybe it might pick up the pace a little bit.
Well, hopefully at least we'll have some battle robot stuff in it.
I think it shoots itself in the foot by making it all in interview format, because like, you never get any character development, because you're always like kind of held at a certain amount of distance from the characters.
Right.
And also has an annoying love triangle in it to create tension. And it is a time when authors should admit that, you know, firstly, love triangles do not occur as frequently in real life as they seem to in books. It's quite impressive, really. And secondly, that there are other ways to like create tension, and can they go off and find them and write them, please? And then I will stop feeling personally victimized by love triangles. Okay?
How else could you create tension in a story about a giant battle robot?
Question.
Yeah, right.
Well, you've got this giant battle robot.
Is the robot part of the love triangle?
No, and that right there is automatically a better book.
Yes.
That is
I'm on board with that
a better book than Sleeping Giants right there, Brock. That's
Can
it.
the robot learn to love?
Yes. And you teach me to be a real boy. So yeah, letdown. And what was my other letdown that I mentioned on Martinez's video? trying to think, because that was where I. I'll think of it. Somebody else come up with a hate while I'm thinking about.
Was it not the last one? Was the
last,
other one?
The last
mentioned?
one, yes.
The creepy memory for inane things.
Well, you have to. You're a lawyer, so you. Yeah, here it is. Again, another good idea. This is what was frustrating about the last one. The thing about my least favorites last year wasn't that they were just overtly terrible. That's at least a mark of distinction, and I can even enjoy overtly terrible. But when you just have stories that had the potential to be good, but they just end up being mediocre because, like as Brock has pointed out, fantastic missed opportunities. But with there it is. You've got 2 books in one with this, and one of them is really, really good. And the really, really good one is a surprisingly realistic depiction of the production of these kinds of reality shows, some of which I've worked on. So I know what goes on with them. And I've worked on The Bachelor. What else have I worked on? I've worked on Top Shelf. So it's fun to see all this behind the scenes. And I worked on season 7 of The Bachelor.
My mom would be very excited to hear that.
And I can tell you, yes, a lot of it is staged. A lot of it, you do have producers behind the scenes saying, all right, we want this person to be the villain of the season, and we're going to sort of end things. And so in this book, you have a lot of that going on. No matter what, essentially you have this wilderness survival show where people are just thrown out to the wilds, and this is going to be the Dark Souls of wilderness survival shows. It's going to be the most difficult one ever. So you have all the contestants doing the stuff, and you have like this guy who's hyper focused and like super survivor guy, and then you have our viewpoint character, young woman, and then you have a few other folks, and people are just sort of routinely eliminated as the process goes. But all of that is like on point. And that's great, but it's braided together, the narrative, with the post-apocalyptic thing that happens, which is that while this first season of the show is shooting, and this character is off, in the wilderness, she's completely oblivious to the fact that all at once this Captain Tripp's plague has struck the human race and killed everybody, and she doesn't know this because she's and that's again. Fascinating concept. At the end of the world happens when you're not looking. But the character then is just, well, in my review, what I said was it has an idiot plot at that point. An idiot plot is a specific term that was coined to refer to the kind of plot that cannot possibly work unless your character's an idiot and does idiotic things. And so what happens in this is that, like, she comes upon actual dead human bodies and thinks, oh, that's a prop. The producers put this here as a prop to fool me. And, well, that's kind of creepy. And then she finds more. It's like, wow, all these props, And she comes upon this one panicked young kid who's a survivor going, oh, my God, another human. And she's like, ooh, an actor that they've sent to fool. And it's like she never breaks out of this, right? It never, until like the last minute of, you want to talk, Samantha, about like characters who don't know things that they should know. And this goes on for the whole book. And you're like, how stupid is this woman? And because she's not, right? She's advanced. She's clearly very resourceful and smart. And so that was to me just a huge disappointment. But it got a lot of buzz, and because it has a great hook. But then you actually read it and you just want to go.
Yeah, it was just very meta, like overall. And even though the reality TV bit was interesting, every reality TV show contestant was referred to by like one word that described them. So like the main character was Zoo because she was like a zoologist who worked in a zoo. But like there was an Asian character who was literally called like the Asian, which was just frankly kind of like inappropriate and insulting. And that just meant that like the characters never got any character development because it was like, oh, the Asian is doing this. Oh, the black guy is doing that. And
I think it's like making fun of archetypes in general with fiction.
Well, no, it's exactly
but it didn't
how
sit well with
it's exactly how those producers think.
It may well be, but it didn't.
The Asian guy. It's like that's exactly how.
It reminds me of.
It's gross, but it's how it goes.
I know Thomas likes horror movies, so it kind of reminds me of The Cabin in the Woods, when it has like all these stereotypical archetypes that go and then they get like killed off or whatever, and there's like the people behind the scenes that know what's going on. I think it might be blurring the lines between like what's real and what's not real. Although if there are corpses on the ground, surely she would smell the decaying flesh. So that part kind of is illogical in itself. But I think it's like making fun of people and not realizing like the dangers that are right in front of their face. And they're like, oh, look, a prop.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It sounds like a satire to me.
Well, it's I don't know if it's meant to be. I mean, I think it's this again because the stuff that it presents is fairly straightforward in terms of just how these productions work. But
that's entertainment business.
Yeah. I can see how people would read a lot of that and find it like tremendously distasteful, but you know, it's part of it.
I just wanted to bring up something, which
anyway,
is that as soon as you said.
Oh, go ahead.
As soon as you said the premise of that book, I was like, wait a minute, I've seen a TV show that's exactly that, and it was really good, and I couldn't remember the title. So thank you, Maya, who said in chat, it's called Dead Set.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it's available outside of Europe. Clearly, Maya has seen it in Finland, but I think it might have been like a BBC show or a Channel 4 show. But yeah, it was the Big Brother house, and like literally Big Brother, and all like, you know, double walls with fake mirrors so that you can film through there and stuff. And basically the zombie apocalypse happens, and the people inside the Big Brother house don't know because they're inside, and they're like confused as to why they're not getting like food deliveries anymore and instructions for the producers and stuff. And in the meantime, you've got like people trying to survive outside of the Big Brother house and stuff. It's really fun. And zombies, which I think are still amazing. So,
okay.
It sounds like an episode from Black Mirror.
It does. I thought it was that, so I googled it and it wasn't. But it's very much in that vein.
Okay, well then I'll have to I'll look that show up then. All right. So anybody else have some disappointments, or if we're done with that, we can just anybody have any last minute ads, things that they read last year that were not SFF that were really really good.
I have a disappointing one.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I read Red Right Hand by Levi Black. Has anyone read this?
Okay.
It's like it's actually like a horror, but it has fantasy elements. It's about this girl that gets forced into like a semi-apprenticeship by a god, and then she has to go around and help him. But the thing with this one was that she very early on, within like the first 5 pages or so, you know that she's been very harshly sexually abused. And then the way that the author did it is that he kind of like dangled that fact in front of the reader for like a ridiculously long time. And I don't know, I just really hated it. And then when you finally like read the scene where she gets sexually abused, it was just like, this is disgusting and not necessary. So yeah, I really hated this one.
Yeah, let's try to think of better tragic backstories for female characters than that one, shall we? Let's try to come up with something better.
But yeah.
Wow. Okay. I got it, but I haven't read it. I was thinking about reading it for Halloween, but yeah, you saved me time there.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, then. Who's got something else? We had someone in chat. Chris Reading Roads says agrees with you. Red Right Hand is terrible. One of the worst books I've ever read. Okay, then. Yeah. Let's see. Does anyone else? And then people were talking about Dead Set and shows. And okay. Kitty just like screams. You worked on The Bachelor? Yes, Kitty. I worked on The Bachelor. It was a great crew, but it was it took 3.5 months to pay me. But that's my own personal
show business.
Yeah, I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
But it was cute. I only did the Austin location stuff, none of the stuff where they went back to LA. But okay, so who has anything else they'd like to chime in, or can we call it an afternoon? Or...
I just want to say I haven't had any bad reads for this year, but I do recommend if anybody likes, to lighten the mood a little bit after all that negativity. I would recommend everyone to start reading the Greatcoat series. By Castell. Night's Shadow is the sequel. I read that one in 2016, and it was awesome. And Saint's Blood came out also in 2016, and I'm about to start that one now. But the Greatcoat series, it's a fantasy book, and it's like the Three Musketeers meets like Liza Locke Lamora, and it's very funny. very witty, very bloody, grimdark, and very adventurous, and it's awesome. The first book's called Traitor's Blade, and start with that one first. And it follows 3 magistrates, and they have to go around, and they're called Tatter Cloaks, and they used to serve the king, but the king was overruled, and now it's different powers, like different dynasties actually. And so now they have to go around and like send the king's messages before he passed away, and they have to try to achieve the king's like what he wanted to do before he passed away. It's very, very good. I recommend it if you guys haven't checked it out already. It's awesome.
I added that one to my TBR after your videos about it. So it's one that
Awesome.
I'm hoping to get to this year. Like I have a really large, especially fantasy TBR for this year, but I'm hoping to get to that.
Well,
series for
especially
sure.
like with fantasy, and I'm trying to avoid fantasy tropes in particular. And I think Sebastian Castell did a really good job of being very refreshing, and it has the mixture and the combination of comedy and drama and tragedy. So it was lovely. I enjoyed it very much. Hope you enjoy it too.
Hope so too.
Yeah.
I've heard something about there not being that many female characters in that book. Is it something that's true, and if true, is it something that's like maybe improved in a sequel?
Yes. You have 3 magistrates. They're great coats. Falcio, Kess, and Brosti. But if you continue the series with Night Shadow, you get Valiana, and you get Dara, and you get these female greatcoats, and it's so inspiring. Like after I read this series, I'm just like, I want to be a greatcoat. It's so awesome, and what they're trying to do, and it's like the greatcoats versus the knights, and how they make fun of the knights, and there's some mystery to it, and it is very gruesome. There's some very gruesome scenes if you guys are uncomfortable. I know there's like a rape scene in there that's very gritty, but overall I think if you like comedy and tragedy in one book that make you laugh and cry at the same time, then I think Traitor's Blade's a good start for you guys.
I know that Sam Ulrich, Sam's Nonsense Sam, loves those as well.
Yeah, me and her buddy read it. Yeah. Last year, me, her, and Michael from Bitten by Radioactive book, we all read it together, the first book, and then Sam and I continued with Night Shadow, and then she jumped ahead and read Tyrant's Throne. Or no, Tyrant's Throne comes out this year. It was Saint's Blood. She read that one. So that's one I'm going to go to next. And it's very fun, you guys. It's a very refreshing read for fantasy as well. So check Sebastian de Castell out. He's great.
And I think he is starting a new series this year.
He is. It's his first young adult novel, which I'm very intrigued with. And this is a concept that's fantasy, magic, meets like the Wild Western setting, which sounds awesome to me. I like weird Wild Westerns, so I want to see how he does that with magic. And that one comes out, I think, in May of this year. But yeah, Sebastian Castell, his writing is very witty, and he's such a smart aleck. I love it. When you're reading the dialogue, you connect with the characters, and he's so hilarious. But he's a very smart, cunning author. So you guys check him out as well.
That's where you hook that Scott Lynch fandom with that series with the same.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why when I heard about that and there being similarities, I was like, this sounds a little bit like Loch Lamora.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Which is fine. We can do with more of that.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Hello, book 4, Scott.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see more young adult with fantasy and with sci-fi in particular. I know I read Arena by Holly Jennings last year, and it wasn't marketed as a young adult, but while I was reading it, it sounded very young adult, but it had some pretty important themes that went along with it. Pretty much it's about Callie Ling, and she is, I think, 18 or 19 years old, and they are athletes that are competing with virtual reality gaming, essentially. So it involves virtual gaming. It has martial arts, which I've done martial arts before, so it was really awesome to see how the author is able to write these combative scenes. And I'm like, yes, that is very logical. You would do that in that situation. So Holly Jennings did Arena last year, and that was really great. And they trade line in the dojon, and then in their combat skills, they apply that to the virtual reality gaming, because in that world, virtual reality gaming is like the biggest entertainment to watch. Like, you know how wrestling is here and everything like that. So people watch people on screen, and then, you know, if they die in real life, or they die in the actual game, and they come back and they have to train and get better and stronger for the next round. But then something happens in the industry, and Callie Lane gets caught up in the industry and how she's supposed to become a stronger person if you're caught up in that type of situation. And of course, she's a diverse character. Callie Ling is also Asian American. So again, it's that going again with the identity and who you are and where do you fit in society. So Arena was pretty good, and the sequel comes out. The sequel comes out this year, and I'm looking forward to that one as well. But that's another book that I read last year. They didn't get as much hype as it did. But I think it's because I didn't get as much exposure to it. So that's another book that I really enjoyed last year as well.
Okay. That's it sounds similar to a book that's, well, one of the Tor.com novellas that I read from last year called Runtime, which is also, by the way, very highly upvoted on the Nebula recommendations for novellas. And it's about this cross-country race where people wear this prosthetic gear to sort of enhance their performance. But it really is about this sort of very structured classist society, and this, one young woman, kind of from, who is trying to kind of break out of her dead-end life. And it is all about how, and then there's this political subtext all about how, the laws are put together ostensibly to sort of help the marginalized and the underprivileged, when in fact what they really do is help keep those people down and that sort of thing. And so it's got that subtext to it, but it has the interesting aspect with the racing. And it ends in a highly satisfying way that was not what I expected.
And it's a novella or a short story?
It's a novella. It's a Tor.com novella, so it's a book in its own right, but very much worthwhile. The only flaw with it was that I wish it had been a full novel, because that world is so intriguing, and I really wanted to know more about it, because there are little concepts that she introduces about how the laws are set up, and how just the way the whole society works, the strata, and her brother is this kid who was always in trouble with gangs, and she tries to pull him out of that, and just the grit of it just felt real enough that I wanted to spend more time in it. But it is very well put together, and again, it pulls off a real feat with the ending, I think.
It's Runtime by who? Who's the author?
The author is S.B. Divya, Divya. I believe is Indian American author.
I'm putting it on my TBR list right now.
Yeah, and have a review on my channel, etc., etc. So
perfect.
So that's that. But okay, who else wants to chime in, or do we have anything else before we sign off? Or if not, what's everyone reading now?
I'm currently reading With Blood Upon the Sand by Bradley P. Bolio, which is the second book in the
I've heard that.
Wednesday.
Awesome.
You read 12 Kings, Connor?
I did. Yeah, I just finished it. I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, I think. And
Yeah.
I originally picked it up because of your review. I don't know when you read that, last year sometime.
No.
Yeah,
It was a while ago.
Yeah, I picked it up, and then the author emailed me and said he'd send me the second one. I was like, perfect.
Yeah. Do you like did you like 12 Kings? Like, how did you feel afterwards reading it?
I really liked it. I felt like there was I don't know, I have a hard time keeping track of all the kings, because they...
Yes, there's 12.
If you haven't heard of it, it's like the city-state called Cherkai in the middle of this desert environment, and there's 12 tribes, and then over time they form this city called Cherkai, and 12 of the people become immortal kings, and then there's also 3 elder gods and then 9 younger gods, and so the main character is trying to kill the kings. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, but it's just a lot of players to keep track of that aren't
It gets very complicated with Blood Upon the Sand, the sequel. You start to see the political play and who's the players and who's on whose side. It gets very...
I'm on page 163. So I'm enjoying it, and I like the fact that a lot of smaller elements that were in the first book that I didn't think were that important end up becoming a lot more important in this book, and they get rewoven into the story. You thought that they were just a throwaway plot line, and then they've brought it back in some small event that happened or something that you thought was just done, has now come back into the story and is affecting things and pushing players in different directions. So
exactly.
Yeah,
and then I think he did a really good job. When I read 12 Kings Kai, especially with fantasy tropes and with flashbacks and everything like that. I'm tired of flashbacks, but I think he did a really good job when he did use flashbacks. He used it in a way where it brought something new to the table when you're back in the present, and it wasn't convoluted and it didn't become redundant at all. So I really liked how he refreshed that trope in a way for me when it came to Cheetah's backstory and her flashbacks. And that happens a little bit too in the sequel. But I like how in the first book, Cheetah is, she's a lower class, and then she gets brought into the royalty, and now she's being trained to become a blade maiden. But in the sequel, you're going to start to see how things start to blur for her, and who is family, and who do you trust, and where do you fit in that and with that. So Cheetah's story, she's a flawed character in herself. Oh my gosh, there's some things I really wish I would tell her, but she has to figure out for herself the hard way because she is very stubborn. But I'm glad you're reading it. So are you liking it so far with the sequel?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I was hoping that this book would have like a list in the back of all the kings.
All the kings?
What they're the kings of. So each king has like a different...
They're the kings of Leon.
Yeah, like a different like power or something. So one can use this device called the mirror to like see
the king of
future.
Whispers and everything.
Yeah,
like
king
that.
of Whispers, king of shadows, king of Serum or whatever. So like, I wish that there was something like I actually wrote it down so that I could go back and see it, like what the status is like with the different gods and everything and what they're trying to do. And yeah, so I'm enjoying it. I just had to make a list to to keep it all straight.
Yeah, I guess with the mythology in that world is very different from ours, and with blood magic as well, you're going to start to see what's going on with the blood magic. It gets pretty intense. So yeah, I'm currently reading, like I said earlier when we started Liveshow, To Like the Lightning by Ada Palmer, and this is a science fiction novel. And I know Brian and Rachel love this book, and they love the sequel. So I gave it a go. I'm 2/3 into it, and like I said, it takes a while for you to wrap your head around this world and its characters, but like I said, I think Ada Palmer is trying to tell us something with this book. And it's like her little sandbox that she's going in and playing around and pulling the strings with all these characters and what she's trying to do with them. So I really like it though. Let's see if I feel the same way after I finish it. We'll see. But I'm hoping to finish this one by this weekend.
Okay. Sam, what are you reading?
I am reading Wind Witch, which is the second book in the Truth Witch series.
How is that?
I love it. Connor, I will fight you if you say anything about Truth Witch. I was like waiting for Connor to say that it was like one of his disappointing reads of the year.
No.
But I love the series. I actually just reread Truth Witch at the beginning of the year just to get back into it. So I've just kind of been marathoning these two. And I love what she's been doing, like on reread and then jumping into this one. I just see all the things that she's laying down and all the foundations that she built in the first book, because a lot of people say that the first book's really dense with the world building for a YA, like just kind of throws you in. It's one of those. And I had that last year as well, but then this year it's very clear to me, and I just love all the characters. And I think the magic is really cool because since it's fantasy and it's very much fantasy, they don't really have a ton of tech, but their magic kind of lends to tech, especially in the second book. So you see a lot of that, and it's just a very cool. I just like the magic system and all the characters and stuff. And it's really a book about friendship. Like the more you get into it, even though there are romantic things going on, obviously, the friendship is just so important, whether it's between the two main characters or their side characters. Like it's just wonderful. So I'm really liking it.
Do you think that I would like it?
I think you'll like it. I think
Better?
you will.
Okay.
I don't know.
I felt like when I read the first one, I liked it. I gave it 3 stars. I liked it, but it wasn't like, I don't know, I wasn't amazed by it, and it wasn't my favorite book or anything. But I felt while reading that I would like the sequels better, just because everything would be established and things would actually start to like I don't know, change and move and.
Yeah, there's an element in the second book with one of the characters that's almost this like vengeance, almost grimdark storyline going on, which I think is a really cool, which I wasn't expecting whatsoever. So I think that, but you definitely still have all those elements. I know you didn't like a lot of the relationship stuff. It still continues those threads of relationship stuff, which I love. I love the relationships in this particular book. But the friendship stuff's really cool. There's all these different characters. She's bringing in a ton more diversity, and I'm very excited for how this series is going to go and the power players. And it's very like lady driven. There's another female character that got added in that is just a complete badass. So it's really nice to see. So.
Brock, what are you reading?
All right.
I'm reading 12 Kings and Cherokee. So we've already talked a lot about it, so I'll just be brief with it. But I'm about 46 pages in, and I love that the writing is very alive. This place of Cherokee, you can feel the sweat off of people when they're fighting, when they're having sex. I'm really feeling like it's a very alive novel so far, and I'm just getting into it, but I'm loving it.
Just wait.
The desert comes to life for you, especially in the marketplace when he's describing the smells of the spices and everything like that. You're just like, I'm here in the marketplace in the middle of the desert. Awesome. It's very good. Yeah.
I like the actual like race of the people, like they're all brown skinned, and it just like makes sense for that type of environment that they would need more like melanin in their skin to like just survive in the desert. And the white people that are in the book are like the weird ones that are like, whoa, he looks weird. And also
like they're foreign.
They're like, whoa, like out there. And some of them are slaves. So I like that like reversal on, because I feel like a lot of epic fantasy is like very white and they're like, I don't know, medieval time period in there. So I liked seeing it changed. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. What you reading?
I don't have my book to hand because I didn't get it into this room with me. The Wi-Fi in my room is too poor to actually participate in a live show. But I'm reading Lightfinder by Aaron Paquette, who is and I'm going to try and say this right this time, Métis author from Canada. So he's Indigenous. So I'm trying to read more Indigenous authors this year. But it's a YA fantasy novel about a young girl whose brother goes missing. So she and her grandmother go off into the forest to try and track him down. And it's pretty good. Like, it's not amazing, but it's a decent story and I'm enjoying it. And I just finished Down Among the Sticks and Bones. So that's kind of what I'm reading at the moment.
Okay, then. Claire.
Thomas, what are you reading?
What am I reading? I'm reading Ninefox Gambit. And I have started a book. I've been wanting to pay a little bit of attention to some lower profile titles that a couple that I sort of looked over last year. And so I've picked up a book out of the pile from a Nightshade book called The Root, which looks to be, it's an interesting, again, it's in the other room, but the premise is kind of neat. It's not, again, technically a YA, but it could fit because the protagonist is this young kid living in San Francisco, and for a while he was like this sort of like viral, maybe, I don't know, YouTube-ish or something, some pop star, but then his career got derailed and something to do with his ex-boyfriend, and so now he's kind of like, and so now he's experiencing like the backlash effect of social media where they build you up and then they tear you down, and so he's trying to kind of deal with that and getting into some trouble with the law, and then all at once he discovers that he appears to belong to this either race or culture or what have you of like demon fighters, and has to say like, what am I doing fighting demons? And other people are showing up saying, you are one of us, the demon fighters. So I've just looked into like the first 3 or 4 chapters of it, and it's okay. I mean, it sort of makes that kind of that urban grit feel very tactile, and but I'm going to see how it melds the urban fantasy with the high fantasy elements of it and see how it all puts it together as a package. The author is a fellow whose name I don't want to mispronounce without reading it, so I won't. But he is like he's a African-American member of the LGBT community in San Francisco and does like lots of, I think, poetry readings and stuff like that. He's kind of in that culture there, so he's writing, I guess, from his, his own turf, as it were. And so sounds very much like the kind of author that I want to be exposed to and support if I can. So I'm interested to see how it turns out, for sure. And so that's what I'm into. Who's left? Who hasn't confessed? Who hasn't admitted their?
I think it's just
All right.
me.
Okay, yeah, Claire.
I am reading Martians Abroad by Carrie Vaughn, which is a new tour title that's out in like 3 days' time, or maybe it's just out now, and I'm doing my review in 3 days' time. I only remember like the date that's really important for me, but it's a YA sci-fi book about a girl called Polly who lives on the moon colony with her mother, who's the director of the colony, and her brother, her twin brother. And their mother sends them to this very prestigious academy on Earth where, they are kind of expected to make connections with very important people. And she is just not there for all this kind of like schmoozing and networking. She doesn't really understand why she has to do it. She didn't sign up for doing it, and it's all that, but in the setting of this boarding school and in the future. And she keeps referencing like how different things are on Mars, and how just things that the Earth kids don't have to think of, like conserving water. And the first time she goes outside, she's like, oh, I need a respirator because I'm going to die. And then remembers it's not going to happen. So it's really well done. Like I'm about 50-60% of the way through now. And it's really well done in terms of like the high school and the general like kind of oppressiveness of like them being sent away. But at the same time, like I think there's meant to be like a bigger plot, and it hasn't really like started yet, so I'm a bit confused as to like what the main. I think there's like a mystery element that has just started, but like I looked at the percent thing on my Kindle when the first like mystery bit happened, and it was like 47%. So I'm not sure about the pacing of this book, but I'm really enjoying reading it, and it's going very fast. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a short little book too, though. It's not like it was massive. So it's a quick read.
And yeah, I'm gonna do a giveaway as well. So I have a. If I had thought beforehand, I could have brought it from over there on my shelf, because I actually have a copy. But
oh well, we'll forgive you this time. All right. Well, then, I guess unless anybody else wants to throw anything in the pile, we've been going just under 2 hours now, so maybe it could be time to sign off and say thank you to everybody for watching. I want to thank all of my amazing, illustrious friends and guests from BookTube for joining in on this and having a fun conversation. I really appreciate it. In the comments, I know you've been doing it in the chat, but tell us all what your favorite and least favorite reads were from last year and what you're looking forward to this coming year. And who knows, maybe there's nothing to look forward to this coming year, and we'll all just end up playing Andromeda. So
that was a line for me that you just fed me.
Yes. That's it. Reading N.K. Jemisin's Mass Effect novel. There we are.
Yes,
and,
very excited about that.
Yeah, and Catherine Valente's. Yeah,
a couple of them. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Wow, that's how to get me to read a video game novel right there. But otherwise, hey, thanks everybody for turning up. I appreciate it, and I'm gonna once this gets archived, I'll leave everybody's channel links down below. Subscribe to whoever you haven't subscribed to yet, and otherwise, until all of us, and until I see you next time, thank you again, and happy reading. Bye.
Thanks for hosting, Tom.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.